Juggling motherhood and modern day life can be stressful and relentless, but it doesn't need to be this way. The Joy of Being podcast is the answer to maternal mental health, bringing sustainable relief and calm to hardworking mums everywhere so that you, your family and work can thrive. My name's Marina Pearson and I'm your host, transformational coach and mum who loves to interview business owners, transformational professionals and creatives to have insightful conversations about what it takes to really live a life that is thriving, fulfilling and full of joy. And today I've got some amazing news. You can now order your very own version of the Joy of Being book, supporting hardworking mums to stress less and live more. If you're the type of mum who is struggling with the burdens of motherhood or modern day life, then this will be a perfect book for you. If you're curious, you want to know more and you want to see what's up with that book, you can do so at www.marinapearson.com/book. And on today's show, I have the beautiful Jan Chipman. Jan is Chip Chipman's wife and who I interviewed last week. And this week I get to interview her too. She's also been a very close mentor of mine and is a beautiful friend as well as a beautiful human being. And we spoke about love and the truth, as this is the main, if the only ingredient to have a long-lasting and healthy relationship. Jan spoke of her times in prisons and the miracles that she saw by working with people there. We also spoke about mums and the roles that we play and how love can be an amazing elixir to helping us see and grow our children. She also spoke of her journey and how she went from being really miserable to being a very, very happy human being and how that had a massive effect on her relationship. So she's been involved in sharing this understanding for the last 40 years and is just generally an amazing being and soul. So if you are struggling with your relationships, if you are bickering with your partner, you're having a hard time with your children or even someone at work, this is going to be an amazing episode for you. Enjoy. So welcome everybody. And today I'm super, super excited to be sharing the next 45 minutes to an hour with such a beautiful, beautiful being that is of Jan Chipman, Chip Chipman's wife over 50 years, as he was so proud to tell us the other day. So Jan, I know personally, and I've known her for is it 5 years now? Feels like a lifetime. But I completely fell in love with her when I first met her. And I've been working on and off with her as well as Chip for the last, feels like lifetime. And she's had a very profound effect on me and my own innate well-being. So I'm super excited to have her here today to talk about whatever shows up in the conversation and wants to be expressed. So welcome, Jan.
Thank you, Marina. And you're one of my favorite people too, I have to say. And that's why
I don't pay them to say this, by the way.
Well, I paid you.
Yeah. I paid you. So I really want to start with, when we were talking about what we'd love to talk about today, Jan, you said that there's something really new for you that you're experiencing more of. And I just wanted to start there. What is that?
Well, it's a resurgence of the beautiful feeling that I first encountered when I first heard Sid years ago, almost 44 years ago. But that beautiful feeling that came in when I realized that my happiness wasn't dependent on other people or events. And all of a sudden I was seeing my life totally differently. And so this beautiful feeling came into my life that maybe I had experienced when I was a child or, some points in my life, but never as solid as when it came in. And so over the years, I've been experiencing different levels of that feeling. And generally my life it's never been the same since I first had that realization that I'm creating my experience. But lately, I would say in the last few months, there's been a whole other level of discovering that feeling. And And it's beautiful because it's totally attached to how I'm looking at life. And so that's what is so wonderful to me, that the learning is ongoing. And so I'll always be looking at life in whatever way I'm looking at it at the moment. But for myself, it's generally getting more and more beautiful, even though I have times when it plateaus or I go through things. But generally, it's leading me in a beautiful direction. And it occurred to me a few months ago that out of nowhere, it occurred to me, it's so much easier to feel love than to feel judgment. Because like everybody else, I have my perceptions of other people, and they're always weighed against the way I look at life, and whether the way other people are acting or thinking agrees with the way my opinion of what life is. And so I go through those periods where I'm not feeling that beautiful feeling when I'm around other people. But it just out of nowhere, it came to me, wow, when you just feel love and you don't question other people's motives or what they're thinking or how they're acting, you just disregard all that and you just feel love, that's such an easier way to live your life.
Yeah, I totally and utterly agree. The judgments and the overanalysis and the rumination, it just makes life so difficult in a lot of ways. Like I remember one holiday coming back with Mark, my ex-husband, and we were at the train station waiting for our train. And I was on my phone. And he's like, I'm going to go off now and I'm going to go to the platform. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And so he goes off to the platform and I'm then going, okay, I probably need to go now. Where is the platform? And I thought I knew where the platform was. So I went where I thought the platform was and I was wrong. And they told me you have to go upstairs. So at this point, I'm really cutting it fine. And I suddenly go into this major judgment, overwhelm. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. Why didn't I do this? Why did I leave it till the last minute? I can't find it. Oh my God, my ticket. Where's my ticket? Oh gosh, my ticket. So there I am attempting to first of all, see if I can find my ticket on my phone, which I can't. I phone Mark and say, hey, can you come back? Do you have the ticket? And he's like, no, I'm on the platform. I say, can you come back? And so he comes back and we have this major row at the ticket because we have to show our tickets. Otherwise we can't get on the platform. And he's like, I'm going. So he goes off. I miss my train. At this point, I'm like, fucker, and just getting really upset about the whole thing. I still can't find my ticket. I'm like, wait, it's on my phone here somewhere. Anyway, so I'm really upset by this point. Can't find my ticket. My husband's buggered off to Valencia on his own and left me in Madrid. And this is like this big drama. So I have to go, go to the ticket office and have to get a new ticket and buy a new ticket. And it's just, anyway, so I'm sitting there waiting to speak to somebody. And at which point my head starts to calm down again. And I press a button and the ticket appears. And I suddenly realized, oh my goodness, this is how I used to do life most of the time. Not being able to see the ticket or not being able to see what's right in front of me.
That's quite the story. That really has a lot of meaning. I'm sure everybody can relate to that story.
Life's so much easier to navigate when you're not caught up. And I would have been able to have found the ticket if I hadn't completely.
Definitely. That's a beautiful story, Marina.
I couldn't see.
And that set the tone for the rest of your day. And that's what strikes me, and what came into my head was that this feeling I've been having lately, but like the after effects of that feeling of how it's so much easier just to give up and just feel love instead of the judgment and the friction, that after that insight, which wasn't a new insight in a way, or just a deeper look at that, I saw that playing out in my life till just like recently, how when I see that my keeping a nice feeling for myself really does affect the world around me. It's amazing. I get to enjoy the feeling, but also I just see the difference in how the days play out and how there's more harmony all around me and the people I'm with. And I remember years ago, it hit me one time when our children were little and they were at home with us. And on the weekends, all of a sudden, we were all together. The kids were home from school, we were home from work. And it seemed like there was this thing that would happen on Saturday morning. There would be an upset of some kind. And I don't know why that would happen, but it would happen. And one time I just caught on to it and I thought, well, if I don't engage in any kind of negative feeling or feelings of tiredness that are going on with others, or if I'm feeling those feelings of being tired, or then it's amazing how that can affect the whole weekend. So what I started to see was, after that insight, we'd always have these beautiful weekends. So instead of having 2 days off together, all of us, that we would have a nicer experience. And it seemed like all I had to do was get it for myself. And so recently, when we've been spending a lot of family time over the summer, and I've had that kind of similar story come back to me, that if I just take care of myself and don't get caught up in what's going on with everybody around me, whether they're in a good mood or tired or whatever, and I just trust in everybody that they're just where they're at. And all I have to do is just take care of myself and love them no matter where they're at. And it's been amazing because I've watched it just create this nicer and nicer environment with my loved ones. And so it's ongoing learning, because I feel that life is showing up nicer and nicer the more I just give into it and surrender that love really is what joins us together. And I know that some days I may, and I still, even recently, I'll be overreactive and snap at somebody or say, or make a judgment that was unfounded. And I think, well, you did that, and then it was totally unfounded. So those little things still happen, but the overall flow is towards this feeling that we know we all love each other, and so in our family. And so there's less and less getting caught up in those little, in that friction of little things that are annoying and little behaviors that we think, oh yeah, that person is treating me this way, or they're not respectful or whatever. When I ignore those kind of thoughts and just have that trust, I'm just, again, like in kindergarten, learning this all over again.
I love what you just said, which is this, that of course we love each other. Like, there's a sense of just knowing that actually that is the truth, that there is love always. I wrote down here, love is always the answer. I know it sounds so cliche, right? But there's something in cliches when we...
that's guided me through my whole life, that little phrase.
I love it. And I want to go back to this. I know we've shared the story about why it's easier to love. But for those that are listening in, and this is really new to them, because obviously you've been looking in this direction now for 44 years. I can't even begin to imagine what experience you must have in your life, like how that, to be in your body, it must be quite blissful.
Honestly, no different than everyone else. I know that I go through the same things, but it's almost like, and I don't like that thing too much about that other, it's another cliche about being the observer, but I'm able to have my happiness in spite of the fact that I'm ordinary and I go through those same things that everybody goes through.
So how does that help? Let's say, like when you said, it's easier to love, for those that are listening in that are like, well, how is that? How is that? How is it easier to love when I've been living in a world that's of fear and stress and overwhelm and possibly shouting at my kids and, not getting on well with my partner? And how is it that it's easier to love? Because anytime I attempt to do that, everything goes wrong. Like what does that mean in terms of,
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that I experienced those same kind of anxieties or discomforts. But when you have the foundation of knowing that nothing out there can create your happiness or unhappiness, it grows. And so I may not, I have those same experiences of being sometimes looking at my people around me and just feeling negative, like really negative. But that's becoming less frequent, and generally the happiness is taking over more. So for me, and it's not about the 44 years that I've taken, that it takes that long to get to the place where it doesn't come up as much, that those things, other people's behavior upsets me or bothers me. But because anybody can go there at any moment. It has nothing to do with how long you learn about the principles, which are what I learned from Sid, was that mind, consciousness, and thought, and how that our experience as human beings is possible because we have that consciousness and ability to think, and then that mind, which is that connection to the universal, So I know my life is so much nicer than it was those 44 years ago. And if I look back, I think, I don't know, how could I even stand living in that reality that I was living in my head? Like I was so paranoid and easily upset and everything. However, it's not about time. Because there's something way deeper in this conversation than just, I'm this human being that sometimes I feel good and sometimes I feel bad. There's this learning for me to see that the moment that we're in right now, the where we are in this moment, in the now, is really all that exists. And so I could drag forward, like I used to drag forward all the grudges and all my unhappy memories and just keep dragging them forward, just carrying them around with me and thinking that was reality. And now I'm just learning again, it's like kindergarten every day, just to see that the reality is what you can't see. And so when I see other people's behavior or I judge them, or that's a false reality. If it's made up of my thinking, it's a false reality. So it's learning more and more to trust that there's something deeper that we don't necessarily see as human beings. Like you said, you weren't seeing what was right in front of you. And that's what happens when we believe in our thinking, as opposed to believing in who we really are on the inside. That's where we really see the true reality. And so to me, it's a matter of just noticing when my mind is getting too busy and just looking out there in the world for what's bothering me and trying to justify my feelings of being upset with someone, or just catching myself when I'm in a moment of just at peace, whether I'm in my garden and just deadheading the roses or something like that. So just seeing the difference is enough to keep moving myself towards that true self, what I call it, where everything is already perfect. And I really believe that. I believe that inside all of us, there's a place where there really aren't any problems, where no one can hurt us. And I mean, that's a really pure state. And we don't have complete access to that in every moment. But just to know that it's there is enough to have like a reference point, so that when life feels bad, I know that that's got to be a false reality if it feels bad, because life isn't meant to feel bad.
Yeah, I had an insight about 2 months ago when what I heard was, what if all of this is here for your joy? Including your son.
Beautiful.
And I wrote a post today about this because it's something that's quite new for me too, which is this role of motherhood, like taking it very seriously and living it as if it's an obligation, not living it joyfully, but living it from get your shoes on, eat your food, survival, versus something deeper and more beautiful and joyous and celebratory and fun, and kind of connecting back into that joyful place that we all experience even as adults, if we let ourselves, right? If we let ourselves, like what you were saying. And I realized that I don't let myself, not in this area. Like in other areas, my work, when I interact with people, can have a real giggle and laugh. But the area of motherhood is a serious thing. And so I noticed recently, like in the last couple of days, that I've actually wanted to spend time with Leo on my own with him, which is very new, because I would dread it hugely beforehand. And because I would have to entertain him, or he was going to be like taking away my my energy. But actually, I just noticed yesterday, I was like, oh my God, this is actually fun to hang out with my son.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. And that shows that you've been learning something deeper in life, if that's the affect of it or the effect of it.
Yeah. And Jan, do you find this, like, you seem to be the last person to know about that? Like, I'm like, oh my God, that's a surprise. Who knew?
Yeah, exactly. And any mother would say the same, because now I'm a grandmother. But I remember that feeling of, because there's so much you have to give when you're a mother. But there is something about, like, I know that Leo now shares his thoughts with you, and you have able to have conversations. And to me, that's a beautiful turning point, because not that you can't experience that closeness before they start talking and sharing things, but I had an experience with watching our grandsons recently, where one of our grandsons, before he went to bed, he'd start talking with me. And before, I would be like, in the last visits before with them, I would be, as soon as they get to bed, that's like a big sigh of relief. Yeah, we did our duty for today.
Yeah.
They're in bed. Now it's my evening, right?
Yeah. Just waiting. I actually was talking to a friend of mine. She goes, I wait for 5 hours every day until he goes to sleep. Isn't
that interesting? And I know we all have done that. And
yeah, right.
Exactly. And so what happened with me over this visit was that I I didn't realize that I'd let go of that. I didn't even notice it. But what I found was happening was I was sitting and talking with our grandson before bedtime and absolutely enjoying, not just enjoying it, but being so moved that he was sharing all these experiences that he's been having of how much he's enjoying this program that he's in, where they go into the woods and they learn things and all about nature. And I just saw his innocence. And I mean, during the day, sometimes he'd been a little stinker during the day, but so we'd had our moments, but it was just like this transformation of just sitting there and just like adult to adult. That's what it felt like. And it's definitely soul to soul. And I didn't even realize that I had totally let go of that thing of, okay, you go to bed now, it's my time, and without kids, right? But so I totally relate to that, what you're saying. But see, it's beautiful that you're feeling it now as the mom of a young child and not waiting.
Well, yeah, I mean, this whole waiting thing is just really interesting. Waiting until they get older, waiting until they go to bed, waiting until, right? Like that's just what comes to me is we're waiting, waiting until we die, waiting until the next moment.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that it might be better, but not realizing that actually it can be beautiful right now. We don't have to wait for that. And it's just, that's kind of, it feels to me that's what's been happening more of the time for me now, how it's like there's less waiting, more being right now. And well, yeah, there are moments where I go back into the like blah blah. What's interesting is if anybody's listening to this and going, yeah, it's all great for you guys, it's accessible to all of us, right, Jan?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, you've seen miracles. Like, I'd love you to share, because of the work that you've done, and every time you share something like from the prison work that you did, like I don't know, that's what comes to mind, is to really access one of those amazing miracle stories of love.
Well, you probably heard this one a few months ago, and because I shared it in a talk, and you were at the talk. You may not remember the story, but as soon as you said prison, I thought of the time when we were in a program sharing with women who'd been in prison, but now were in a treatment center where they were learning to re-enter society. And so it would be on a Saturday morning, and we were working in a prison at the same time, but now we were working in this treatment center, residential center, and women would show up from all over Florida and had been bussed in the night before from prisons all over Florida. And so on the Saturday morning, there would be people that we already knew from the prison we worked at. There would be people that had been in the program for a few weeks. They'd come in from their prison a few weeks before. But this one particular Saturday, there was this woman who had just arrived the day before, so she was new to the group. And we were going around the room introducing each other, and this woman who was just seemed very composed and very seemed really had herself together, but when as soon as she introduced herself, she said, well, the first thing she said was, my mother is watching my son, and my brother's in prison, and I've been in prison, and my poor mother has had to, I feel like I'm ruining her life and my son's life, because my mother is suffering from severe depression, and she's on heavy medication, And my son, I think her son was 7 years old, is living with her, but he's in the house all the time. After school, he just sits and watch TV. He doesn't go outside. That's all she can do to take care of him, is just to keep him in front of the TV and send him to school. And so she said, that's my life. That's how I messed up my mother's life and my son's life. And all I could see when looking at this woman was how much she loved her, how she cared about her mother and her son. That's what I heard. And so I just, after she finished sharing with the group, I said, well, I see you as an absolutely beautiful mother and a beautiful daughter who really loves your mom and really loves your son. And she just started to sob. It hadn't occurred to her that she was anything but a terrible mother, a terrible daughter. And so we talked a bit more, whatever, in the session. And I'm sure she came up and we had a hug afterwards, because that was what we did. I mean, people would be so moved by what they were learning, that to see their innocence. That was the basis of our program, was to help these women see their innocence. Mm-hmm. And so the next week, or the week after, the next week she came in and she was absolutely like a new person. She was seeing her own beauty and seeing herself without all that guilt. And but I think it was a couple weeks later when she said that her mother, who lived maybe like in a little town a few hours from the treatment center, she had sent her mother a copy of The Enlightened Gardener, which is one of the books we used in the program for the women, and Sydney Banks' book. But anyway, she said, my mother read the book and she was so moved by it that she all of a sudden, she just saw herself as healthy. She didn't see herself as mentally ill, and she just became happy. And she said, so now my mother is taking my son out to play and letting him ride his bike after school. And my mother, the mother went to her therapist and told her, that she now felt healthy and not mentally ill. And the mother was telling her friends in this little community that she lived, and her sister. And so that to me was the most amazing story, because what I really saw was that woman who came in off the bus, she saw herself with love first, and that changed the world all around her.
That's such a moving story. And what I hear in that is it can happen in any moment. We don't need to wait again until, for those of you that are wondering, well, when will it happen to me? That's one of the mysteries, right?
It is. But the beauty is, I mean, when I shared that story just now, it just woke up a whole new, deeper feeling in me of love, because remembering that incident and the power of love, that to me is what I would love people to hear, is that you don't know when that feeling is going to hit you, but you can trust that it will. It may not, you can't make it happen. I can't make myself feel better or feel love, but I know now that I'm experiencing more of it in my life, then it's not as much of I don't have this worry like, well, will I ever feel it again? I just trust that I don't necessarily wake up every day with that, warm, fuzzy feeling towards everybody, but I know that it will keep coming back to me, and that when it does, it really is the answer to everything. It really is the answer to life, that beautiful feeling. And when you trust that no matter how bad things are, because I'm telling you, when I first heard about that fact that no one else can create my happiness or take it away, that there was a learning in that I'm still unfolding. It's still unfolding to me to this day. And so I started to realize that when I'm getting that beautiful feeling, that's me being who I really am. And when I'm not feeling it, that's okay, because it's still in there somewhere. And because I'm not experiencing it doesn't mean it's not there. It's like we accept a lot of things every day, on faith, that we're not going to fall off the earth, like we trust in gravity. So we know we're not going to spin off into the universe. So there's a lot of things we take on faith, and that the sun will come up in the morning. And so why not that? Like, why not trust that happiness is always in there, and it surfaces when it surfaces.
Yeah, and once again, it goes back to this waiting until, right? Like,
right, exactly.
We don't need to wait until. It's such an illusory minefield. But I love that story because once again, it goes to show that it's universal. That this feeling is universal to everyone. It's not just you or me or the people that I bring onto the podcast. It's universal to each and every one of us. And that
exactly.
and that innate health is inside of all of us, right?
That's beautiful. I absolutely believe that. And even when people don't believe it, like I was just thinking of somebody that I've been talking with for about a year now, actually, and just recently they decided they wanted to just explore this on their own, that they wanted to see without me helping guide them, because it was somebody who was very, very severely depressed. And so I watched that person just trust in this, and yet still struggling, but knowing that there is something inside. And just that knowing that even though all the feelings of depression haven't gone away, they're managing to live with that, knowing that it's not going to be there forever. And that they're starting to see that they do have beautiful experiences during the day. But somehow if we've been told, or we've told ourselves that we're a depressed person, or we're this kind of person or that kind of person, that clouds everything. But people can learn to still have that thought and yet get happier and happier.
Yeah, that was very new for me recently to hear that you could still have those feelings and yet not have them bother you so much. Like, it's okay, I'm feeling this, but it doesn't need to bother me in the way that it used to, or it doesn't actually bother me in the way that it used to.
Mm-hmm.
Not like insight will show up and then that's it, you're cured. It's more like, because it's not even about curing, but it's like it gives space to something that maybe had bothered you a lot beforehand.
And that's beautiful to have those little, how will I call it? Like, we call it a look in the mirror, where you assume, well, my life really hasn't changed. It's because that's partly what was going on with this person, that I had been so depressed. They'd say, well, I'm bad. I just had this bad week. I still feel bad. But then they'd tell me about all the wonderful things they've been doing that they never used to do before, because they were just totally not even getting out of the house. And so that's the look in the mirror to say, yeah, my life has changed. And I think that's really important to have those looks and see that, because that, again, there's a reference point that life is getting nicer. And part of us is so stubborn to try, like your personal self just is always trying to convince you, no, it's bad. It's that life, there are things out there that are affecting your happiness or preventing it or whatever. So that's what our personal self wants to believe, right? And so it's like overriding our personal self.
When you were talking about that client, a client of mine came to mind who had been suffering with depression for 5 years. And just like, we had a conversation, and it was, it's so interesting, isn't it? It's just like a throwaway comment, and suddenly your soul hears something that's so like, what did you just say? And you're like, I don't know. What did I just say?
Right.
And she said, like, she re-emailed me later to say, I don't know what just happened, but all of that depressive thinking has just disappeared.
Wow.
In that one moment, we still to this day don't know
that's beautiful.
What was said, or but she'd spent so much time in like wanting to get rid of it and ruminating over it. And in just that one moment, it just stopped. It just all fell away.
That's beautiful, Marina.
Yeah. I mean, for her, it was amazing. It just took years off. It just took years off. And something comes to mind now, which is, why have we ever thought that it wouldn't be working this way, that we wouldn't be able to, like, just as when we cut ourselves, the body heals. Like, why is the mind any different? It's energy, right?
Exactly.
So, Jan, thank you so much for this evening.
Oh, I enjoyed talking with you so much, Marina. And I love your stories and just, again, that beautiful feeling that you have. There's something really beautiful about people that just smile so easily. And that's how I see you. Your lightheartedness, that is such a gift. That's such a gift. And I see that. That's how I think of you.
We have, it's so funny, Jan, because I find it really interesting that word is used to describe me. Because if I look back on my life, like for the first 20 years of it, or let's say from about my teens until I was about 33 or 4, I would never have known it. I think anybody ever would have described me as lighthearted. I certainly wouldn't have done. And what I find absolutely fascinating is that you discover things about yourself or who you are you didn't even know existed. Like, I never knew that I would, I never knew I was this funny. But, I never knew that that's actually something that I was so lighthearted, or that I could bring joy to other people, or that we could have conversations and laugh a lot. Like, to me, that was just completely inconceivable.
And it's interesting, though. I bet it'll, some days, some things will occur to you where you'll remember moments when you were, because like Chip says, my husband, who you interviewed, he was amazed at how, in spite of all the things that had happened bad for him as a child, it occurred to him one day that people say you block out negative things. Well, he realized he blocked out beautiful things about his dad. So I wouldn't be surprised if sometimes little things will occur to you where you were that lighthearted in the moment.
Well, actually, yes. And funnily enough, in the sort of first instance of describing this podcast and why I created it, the whole point to this is the joy of being. So it's all about lightheartedness anyway. And one of the things that came to me, and it was funny, it came to me in a dream, and it became very obvious to me that I wanted to have these sort of like funny conversations, because actually when I was younger, I was always be given the cameo role in any play that I was ever put in. Like, isn't that funny, right? So here I'm going, yeah, it was difficult. But actually, when I look back, I was always given the funny part. The dumb gangster, the turtle in Alice in Wonderland. I think there was a turtle in that. Anyway, there wasn't in our play. He was the dumb turtle and was goofy. Always sort of the cameo role. I was never given the main part, but I was always given the one that would be goofy. And so it kind of occurs to me that, yes, thanks for the reminder and holding up the mirror. It's come full circle, which is really lovely. Thank you.
Oh, it's been great. Thank you, Marina.
Thank you so much. And for everybody that's been listening, oh, yes, if people want to contact you, Jan, how can they do that?
We have a website, vantageconsult.com. My email is jan@vantageconsult.com.
Wonderful. So if we'll put it in the show notes so that anybody wants to contact you, that they can directly. And if you do get the chance to reach out to them, please do, because they are just such wonderful human beings, and your life won't be the same again. So thank you, Jan. And thank you for everybody that's been listening today. I hope it's been useful. Until the next time, bye for now.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Marina.
And there we have it, another amazing episode of The Joy of Being. If you enjoyed this podcast, you may well enjoy the book as well. You can either download a free chapter, www.marinapearson.com/chapter, where I go into much more depth into how we can create more time and space as mum. And if that doesn't fly and you're more curious about getting the entire book, then you can do that too at www.marinapearson.com/book. Until the next time, remember, you are the joy you seek.